Once the I/O is connected to the model, now we can begin to transform it. What's the first step of data transformation? If we can't trust the data, we don't want to build KPIs off of it. So the very first step is to cleanse the data. And Flow gives us a lot of great tools that will constantly scrub the data that is coming into our model. Those tools include the ability to look at information and determine whether it's outside of band, whether it's stale, or if it's got a lot of anomalies and outliers in it, if the quality's bad. By allowing you to do this before we begin to use the data for calculations, Flow gives you the power to decide what you want to consider trustworthy, and it's not just based off of an OPC quality score. Once the data is cleansed, then we can start to try to figure out how we escape all of the technical debt that we have been inheriting before. So how do we do this without having to write a bunch of custom SQL queries? How do we do this without having to do a ton of scripting inside of other platforms? How do we know we can trust our calculations? The transformation tools inside of Flow are going to help us in this process. Let's take a look at how they work. Let's use our filler as an example. Our filler has a totalizer tag that's in a historian. That totalizer tag we can reach out to and consume that data from the historian. Also, we have a SQL table that has our work orders and our SKUs. So in our operation, we're making multiple products, and we want to get a sense of how much product we've made. Inside of Flow, when we reach out to both the historian or a SQL table and pull information in, we refer to that as a tag. Now, it's easy to pull information out of a time series database. It always comes in with a timestamp, a value, and a quality. But matching those timestamps inside of the historian to the products that we were making inside of the SQL table can be a lot of work. We need to understand every time there's a change in the SQL table, when that change was, and every time there was a change in the historian, when that change was. So within Flow, by reaching out to both databases, I can create a calculated tag. Now, this is our first piece of point normalization inside of Flow. We'll be able to capture every piece of data, that means zero data loss, and build row-based calculations, and we'll refer to that output in Flow as a calculated tag. Now let's look back to our SQL table. I said we're going to make multiple products today. That means inside of SQL, I should have awareness of every time we started and stopped a new product. In Flow, we call that an event, and we write these events into the Flow database. This is the first piece of information that I'm actually going to capture and write into Flow. The tags that I've been connected to and the calculated tags that I am creating in Flow aren't being recorded inside of the Flow database. We're letting the original raw data stay in its database, and we're running those calculated tags in stream. So when I have an event, not only am I able to store the start and the stop times and the duration of the event, I'm also able to record other attributes of that event. When we look at the calculated tag, we will have a cleansed production tag that will tell us exactly how much we have produced for the day. I can take that calculation and then divide it or segregate it into time blocks. This allows me to do period normalization. So the underlying data inside of each time interval will be aggregated and rolled up. This means that if I need to understand from the beginning of the hour to the end of the hour, how much did we produce, I don't have to worry about the burden of boundary values. I don't have to think about in my SQL queries that I used to write, oh, what was the value previous of the hour? So Flow gives us all of the tools so that we don't have to manage that custom code and that scripting. Instead, I'm able to easily look at my underlying values, apply the appropriate aggregate, and start to understand these new values that I'm going to record in Flow called measures. Measures are extremely useful. They're great for production, for understanding our usages, for applying cost, even looking into the future and predicting where we will be based on what we have been doing. So runtime, historical data, using both linear and exponential regression will give us points in the future that we can predict things like production. But we're not done yet, because I want to know how much I've produced, not just per hour, but how much product I've produced. And if we look to our event, we'll see that we've started and stopped production of product within some of these time slices. And so that gives us an additional measure. We can take the event context and apply it to our calculated tag and say, between each event, what did I make inside of each event? What did I make total product per hour, per day, and so on? That's the power of the flow transformation feature. Once we're done with transformation, then we'll look to how we share that information with others. I hope you'll join me in the next video so that we can learn how to openly provide information to people and systems inside of our organization.